Swear. So good evening. Welcome to the head of the Schuylkill Regatta's 50 Years, 50 Stories Story Hour. We are going to get started. I am Jen Wesson. I'm the Executive Director of the head of the Schuylkill Regatta, and it'll be on behalf of the Board of Directors and the Committee 50. We welcome you to our seventh Story Hour. We're excited to hear from a group of men and women who are extremely important to our sport, our USRowing referees. And our goal this evening is to truly see our referees outside of their jackets, or maybe some of us wore our jackets tonight, maybe from behind their megaphone, and learn more about their service to our sport. So we'll hear about the responsibilities of a referee, why they became referees, their experiences with varying levels of rowing, some of the biggest challenges they've faced, and also a little bit about the camaraderie of the group itself. So the hope is that we are able to provide a different perspective, revealing that becoming a referee is an important and fun way to give back to our sport and to stay involved in many ways. And I think the referees that are on board tonight, we have at least 20 in our midst tonight. We'll learn a little bit about one another as well. So just a little bit of background about the genesis of this, and then we're going to delve right into our topic. These story hours began as part of the HUSR's 50th anniversary. We wanted to highlight 50 legendary competitors, crews, coaches, influencers that had catapulted the regatta from its first 50 years to where it is now. We started with written stories, and they evolved when COVID hit into these Zoom story hours, and they've been quite special. People have found them to be really engaging and a great way to see each other when we're maybe not so busy at regattas or on the water. We found that this storytelling is a really great way to connect the community, instill in future generations what our sport past and present is all about, and thereby affect change for the future of our sport. Tonight's stellar lineup is going to do most of the talking, so I don't want to take too much time. I am going to do a little housekeeping items though, just to kind of keep the flow of everything moving tonight. Like I said, Zoom is a tricky platform to work with, but we found that being able to see everybody, not just the panelists or storytellers, has been really educational, it's been important because they're sharing, but you're also sharing with them your appreciation for their contributions and their successes in our community. So I have muted everyone to eliminate any background noise. You have the ability to unmute at any point in time. Just be reminded that any kind of background noise can really affect the speaker and folks from hearing. Be sure, if you want to see everybody, to put your screen on gallery view. If you hover over to the right part of your screen, the upper right part, you'll see a view area, and if you put it on gallery, you'll be able to see a lot more people than just the speaker. I encourage you to keep your chat room open. I will monitor the chat room, and if you have any questions throughout the night that you want to throw out to the referees, or if you just want to add something to a story, feel free to throw it into the chat room, and I'll make sure it gets read aloud or answered as we make it our way through the evening. In addition, I just want everyone to be aware that we are recording this session, so it's available for those who are unable to join us tonight, and perhaps maybe even recruit some future referees in the future. So the format tonight is we'll probably likely run, because we have a lot of volume, till about 8:15, but we will do a hard stop by then. I will turn it over to 3 of our stellar referees to facilitate the evening. And they will introduce and pose questions to all of our referee storytellers tonight. We'll reserve the last 20 minutes of this evening kind of to open the floor. You can verbalize any questions that you have and ask direct questions to folks, or just share your experiences. One thing I do want to note is that this session is not a forum for any type of policy discussions, not opinions about rules or any particular rulings from the past or regattas that you attended. Our hope, again, is just to provide perspective on the referee position and show that becoming part of the referee ranks is a valuable and fun way to give back and stay involved in the sport. So with that, let me introduce our facilitators, John Musial. John, if you just give a little hand wave, maybe people will see your face there. He has served 26 years as a national referee, 13 as a FISA umpire, and he's a 9-year member of the USRowing Referee Committee. John has worked well over 600 regattas, from world championships to novice high school events. He has served as a chief referee for multiple national championship events, national team trial events, dad veils, and scholastic nationals. We also have Rich Dougert. Rich, give us a little wave. It's a little dark there, Rich. It looks a little shady where you are. I like that basement look. He has seen rowing truly from every side. He learned to row at Penn AC, rowed freshman year in college, served as an organizing parent of high school girls team Sacred Heart Academy. He was the vice president of the Parents Association, former member of Vesper Club, a volunteer launch driver, which we all know is very important. He has been an assistant referee since 2001, a full referee since 2005, served as a referee clinician, and he also serves as chief referee for US Rowing Nationals and a huge long list of big regattas throughout the year. He is typically does about 26 regattas annually. And he also does a great deal of work in training and organizing our referee candidates, I'm sorry. Both work, right? And finally, Christopher Blackwall is our third facilitator tonight. Christopher, you can give a little wave. Honestly, Christopher doesn't need too much introduction. He is a member of this committee, Committee 50, and cannot say enough about his past work and his present work as he continues to impact our sport, as he has his entire life. So before I turn it over to these gentlemen, I'm going to start something a little new here with our story hours. I'm going to get things rolling with a round of lightning questions for our facilitators. So I'm going to pose them a question. They're going to give a one or a few word answer. And this is just a fun way to kind of get things rolling, get everybody relaxed, and get to know a little bit more about Chris and Rich and John. All right, so Chris, Rich, John, make sure you are unmuted. We'll start with Chris, and we'll go to Rich and then John, okay? First question. Besides the requisite, what item or piece of equipment do you always carry or have to have with you when refereeing? Chris.
Is on mute.
Uh-oh. Christopher. Oh, he's on mute. Rich, you go.
Okay, I generally carry 15 foot of tow line. And I learned to do that the hard way by not having a way of getting launches, towing broken down launches, or having myself towed back to the shore when needed. So, like when we run out of gas.
Never.
That happens occasionally, you know.
John?
No matter how nice the weather is when I leave my house, my rain gear is always in my referee bag. It's also handy when it gets windy,
Yes.
but really important to have.
Okay. Christopher?
I've forgotten.
Okay. All right. Favorite race venue? Rich?
Oh, I have a couple actually. I have to say the Schuylkill because I spent so much time on it. I also enjoy refereeing down at Nathan Benderson Park in Sarasota. It's a beautiful course.
Good.
So between the two, I'm torn, but if I had to pick one, I'd have to say my home court on the Schuylkill.
Excellent. John?
Probably the most interesting course I was ever on was in Plovdiv, Bulgaria. It's like a giant swimming pool, but it's raised. So when you walk around the path around it, you can actually look the rowers right in the eye. as they go
Wow.
by you, because the water level is about chest high, the way it's set up. Very unique
Very
setup.
cool. Christopher, you have one?
Well, yes, I have an interesting story. I'll try to be brief. We talk about changing horses in midstream. In the San Diego Crew Classic, approximately 1982 or 3, I found myself refereeing the final of the Cutler Cup. And all of a sudden, the boat's engine started acting up. But another boat pulled alongside. I stepped across and continued to do the race.
Excellent. All right. All right. These are kind of one-word answers. Ready? Skull or sweep? Rich?
Sweep.
John?
Sweep.
Ooh. Christopher?
Both.
Okay. It's playing it safe. River or lake?
A
I guess we
river.
could throw reservoir in there too. River? John?
River.
Lake.
Ah. Chris?
Both.
Any body of water.
Yeah, any body of water.
All right, Rich.
Christopher, you're very diplomatic this evening.
That's why he's lasted so
No,
long
I'm not.
in
I'm
this
just
sport.
being evasive. I'm being evasive because I actually am the odd man out. I'm no longer a referee, haven't been one for about 15 years. I was granted emeritus status, which actually also gives me immunity from all sinning, past, present, and future.
And all questions.
You earned
Right.
that, so.
All right. Best referee swag ever received.
I have to say a Blue Ocean Megaphone was
Uh-huh.
actually my most valuable, I guess, because I use it often.
Beautiful. John?
Probably one of those cooling towels that we use in the summer. One of our referees, the chief referee at Nationals, gave them out to the jury.
Mhm.
And it was a summertime regatta, very hot, very humid. And I thought, what in the world is this thing going to be useful for? There's always one in my bag now. I figured it out.
Excellent. Chris?
Well, our major procurement expert at the head of the school is Mitch Budman. And one of the things he gave the referees one year, I still have, which is a black fleece blanket with the head of the school logo on it.
Right, right. All right. Your go-to hobby or sport outside of rowing?
Mine, it's fly fishing. I can't get away from the water too far.
Excellent.
Something I can do all year round.
Cool.
So,
John? Awesome.
Well, basically the same thing, fishing. I just returned from fishing in Mexico right before Christmas. So
Wow.
much as I can, it's like Rich, can't get away from the water.
Nice. Chris?
I specialize in telling lies, wars, and war stories.
All right. Rich, Winter or Summer Olympics?
winter.
John?
It's just too scenic not to pass up.
John?
Oh, winter for sure.
Really? Okay. Christopher?
Oh, I'm going to say both again.
Oh, boy. All right. Favorite movie? Rich?
I think The Art of Racing in the Rain.
Oh, beautiful.
Not
John?
too many people know about it, but it just really struck me as a terrific movie, and I enjoyed it. I've actually watched it a couple of times, so, and I never get tired of it.
I read the book, but I barely made it through without crying, so I don't think I could handle the movie. John?
Probably The Godfather. I've seen it at least 100 times, probably more.
All right, give us your favorite quote.
I'd say endeavor to persevere for me.
I assume from the movie,
Go ahead,
No,
John.
actually, it's from a poem.
leave the gun and take the cannoli.
Actually, for anybody who's a referee recruiter, it's quite simple. You can be made an offer you cannot refuse.
Excellent.
There's a Godfather connection too.
Yeah.
All right. I think we'll end with one habit you're going to build or break this year.
For me, I'm going to pay attention to journaling.
Oh,
Something I haven't been very good at in the past, and I think I'd like to spend some more time recording some of my thoughts and whatever experiences.
Nice. John?
Kind of caught me flat-footed on that one. I'm not 100% sure. Probably, I mean, it's not referee related, but working with my athletes and trying to understand them better than I have in the past.
Wonderful. Christopher, anything for you?
Yes. As far as movies go, one that I will not view at all is The Yank at Oxford.
Okay, nice. All right. Okay, so thanks for playing along, guys. That was fun, and you guys were good sports. So let's delve into our topic this evening with our amazing group of referees. I'm going to turn it over to John. He's going to give a short overview of the referee responsibilities, and we'll lead right into our questions. Thanks, John.
Okay, so what I was going to just talk about initially here was the responsibilities of referees, but more importantly, the process of becoming one of us. If most of you aren't aware, we are volunteers and we put a lot of time in to make it happen. So referee responsibilities, whenever I talk to an LOC, when somebody like Jan Wesson calls me and says, hey, can you do this for a regatta? And the chief and the LOC work hand in hand. And as I tell referees as they show up all the time, if you've worked for me, you know this. The LOC puts the race together, hands us the program, and then we execute. We go out and make it happen on the water itself with the crews. And that's probably the most important responsibility that we have, because no matter what we're doing, we're making it go and executing whatever structure we've been handed that particular day. The process of becoming a referee is not overly involved. If you do have interest in that, one, I'm all over the USRowing website or in the rule book with my email in there, and I'm always looking to recruit, as everyone is, who's a referee. In my tenure, I've licensed well over 100 assistant referees and probably promoted 30 or 40 full referees, at least, if not more. I don't have that number, but becoming a referee is a process. And you can go to USRowing's website, and if you type in the search bar, become a referee, it takes you to this nifty page where it lays out the whole process. It has links for you to fill out and learn. The first step is deciding to do it, then filling out the application so we know who you are. Once that's done, there's safe sport training that's involved, a background check, and then there's an online training component of it where you go through actual referees going through positions and various referee duties. You see referees following races or starting them. Well, that's how we train. That's how we work. Even if you're not a referee, you can go in and look at those. And if you're a coach or just a rower and you want to know what's going on at the start, it's a great thing. You can go spend 15 minutes, look at the video, and you'll learn something about how it works. So maybe next time you'll be more the second to last step is show up at a regatta, work with referees. And at that point, we call those observations. When you have those complete, you take the test and you're one of us and you can wear the blue shirt. It's not an overly difficult process. It can take a few months to get through. In a place like Philadelphia, you can do it in a month because we have so much racing, particularly in the spring. But as I said, we're all volunteers, and without the referees, a lot of these regattas, particularly the bigger ones, just won't happen. So we encourage people to join us. If you have interest, any referee, any blue shirt at any regatta can tell you the process and get you in touch with the right people. So that's my little spiel about our initial responsibilities, as well as the process of becoming a referee. So I guess the next part where we're going to pose some questions directly to our storytellers that we have here. And I will pose the first one. So if I can ask a couple of people to just unmute yourself, and then we will go forward through the through the topic. So the first thing that I was going to ask is describing the differences between what US rowing is and FISA is in terms of the rules that are different and how the organizations are slightly different. So if Jess McAleer, Joan Sholl, and Tom Fuller can come off of mute and just talk about that a little bit. And the reason I've chosen the three of them is Tom and Joan are both emeritus FISA umpires, and Jess is a current FISA umpire. So if we can start with you, Mr. Fuller, if you can talk a little bit about the differences between FISA and the national US rowing, and maybe share a little story from your FISA days.
The biggest difference to me is that at the international level, things are run very by the book. There's not a lot of flexibility. And outside of United States national championships, the amount of concern and diligence that's required from the official because of the consequences of making a mistake, I think are greatly enhanced over even a national championship. What I enjoyed the most about being a FISA umpire, however, was getting to know the other umpires and their background and understanding that it is a different level of commitment, but it still is the same type of process. In other words, at the FISA level, almost all the regattas are championship level. International events can be a 3 or 4-way meet also. Contrasting that with domestic events, they're a lot less pressure I feel on me, except maybe if you're the chief referee for a national championship. You have a lot more access to the athletes at domestic events. There is a kind of a wall between the FISA umpires and both the organizing committee and the participants because of the concern about having influence on an outcome. I resisted, as John knows and some others, becoming a FISA umpire because I thought that most of the ones that I knew were very stuck up and aloof. I found out when I became one that actually you're scared until you get used to the process because the stakes are quite a bit higher. And it was some of the regattas that I attended were the most enjoyable times I've had. But if I were to pick where did I want to spend most of my time, it would still be as a domestic referee because of the involvement and the bottom-up approach that US rowing encourages and facilitates.
Great.
All right, thanks, Tom. Joan?
Okay, I agree with a lot of what Tom said, but there's a few things I disagree with also. I feel that both the international and the national regattas were just as important as each other, no matter what. And they're both fun because it has to be what you make them. And I think the most important thing was what Tommy Keller used to say, the only important person out there is the competitor, not the referee. And I think we should all abide by that, both domestic and international. I don't know how many of the rules have changed because I have been retired for more than 25 years now from FISA. I still do all the domestic because I still enjoy rowing and I want to be in there to help the competitors. I don't think it's my ego. I think I want to help them because they can go into things that they really enjoy, both winning, racing. They learn a lot. Even dealing with some of the para people, it's so fulfilling to you when you deal with some of these people and you realize they're out there doing something that if you had the same problems, you probably would not do it. So the best thing to do is all you referees have confidence in yourself. Make a decision, stick with it. Don't change. You may be right, you may be wrong, but always stick with your final decision.
I should mention, I'll embarrass Joan and say that I believe you're our only umpire that's ever done 2 Olympic Games. Do you have any experience or a short story about something interesting that may have happened there? I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah, probably in Seoul, Korea, was the first time the Chinese women's 8 participated, and fortunately, I was given the final of the women's 8, and of course, they false started. So it was a little embarrassing to raise the red flag, but we had to do it, and it was fair to the others. And of course, they did not win, but they were very, very nice about it afterward. I did chat with them, but it's a little difficult when people first get there to pull a red flag on them. But it was great. Enjoyed every one of them.
Thanks, Joan. And Jess?
John, I don't see Jess on.
Oh, well then,
Yep.
Well, then maybe I'll go to John Quinn because I see him on and he's another
Yeah.
emeritus
Oh
umpire.
my goodness.
So John Quinn, if you want to take yourself off mute and talk about your FISA experience a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, John. Good evening, everybody. Pretty much agree with what Tom says and Joan as well. It's kind of daunting when you get to the level of doing FISA umpiring because, again, it's a world stage. It truly is a world stage. You pretty much think that you are competing with other best referees and with the best crews, and sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not true, but it's always a very grand stage. Again, I was umpired under Tommy Keller's thumb, and as Joan very aptly pointed out, he was very much for the competitor, and the umpires were told to respect that under all cases. I guess my most harrowing tale was the finals of the men's straight pair at the Pan American Games in Havana. With about 1,750 meters down, the Canadian crew decided that they wanted part of the lane occupied by the Cuban crew that was leading. And I was within about, first of all, terrified, as I think Tom pointed out, but I was within about 2 or 3 strokes of stopping the Canadian crew when they really saw what they were doing and pulled back to their own, almost virtually stopped rowing, came back to their own lane. They hadn't responded up to that time, but it's very shattering because we were attended every day by Fidel Castro, who was sitting in the stands at the time, and we were front and center. So, but it's all fun. Take great deal of pleasure out of doing American races as well. Working with the kids, helping them along, mentoring people, and showing them hopefully the best way to do it. That's my thoughts for the day.
All right, thanks, John. I'll turn it over to Chris, and he can take the next question and pose it to some of our storytellers.
I will try to unmute myself.
Oh, you're unmuted, Chris. You're good.
Oh, good. Well, I'd like to call on my good friend Roxanne because I have a couple of questions for her.
Well,
Roxanne,
okay,
can you
I'm
hear me?
here.
Okay, well, I know the answer to this, but who is your mentor for refereeing?
Gosh, I know you. There's no doubt that most of my better part of my repertoire as a referee was handed down to me by Bill Fritz.
Exactly.
There are many others who also participated, but he was the primary influence.
And what would you say was a major characteristic of Bill?
Better to be seen and not heard.
But also, I'm thinking a very military perspective on life, very well organized.
Yes.
Yeah. And the other question I wanted to ask you is, other than your home region, what is your favorite region to referee in?
I have been able to officiate in 5 of our 6 regions, or 5 of our 6 former regions, if I'm correct. I have to say that the Southeast had most of the places I like to officiate. I love Oak Ridge. I thought that Gainesville was wonderful. The Turkey Lake in Florida was very entertaining. There are a bunch more that just don't come to mind immediately, but yeah, Southeast.
Well, that's terrific. And what is your favorite head race?
What is my favorite?
It's not fair, Christopher.
Careful, Roxanne.
Probably the one that gave me the most bottles of wine. As a matter of fact,
All right.
I just uncorked the 2018 Head of the Schuylkill Pinot Noir with dinner last night. I've been sitting on.
Yes, our procurement manager par excellence, Mitch Budman, did it again.
Yes, he did. In all honesty, there are other reasons the Head of the Schuylkill is my most favorite regatta. All the time that I have been in regattas, the lessons I learned on the Schuylkill, either at the Head of the Schuylkill or Stotesbury or SRAs or Frostbite, the list goes on. Lifetime lessons that I carried with me and applied to all my officiating.
Great.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you, Roxanne. Do you have anything you want to, any particular thing you'd like to tell everybody on?
I miss everybody. I don't miss getting up at 4 a.m.
Good one. Great one. So I also wanted to give a plug for another person who's important to this discussion. That's Rich Dougert. And it's kind of self-promoting of me because I wrote a profile of him, and you can find it on the Head of the Schuylkill website if you look under the 50 years, 50 stories banner. And Rich is an amazing guy, and he's done a lot to help the sport, and he's a natural teacher, and he's done a terrific job identifying new referees, and so I'd like to just sort of give him a pat on the back for all that he does. He's a very modest guy, doesn't toot his own horn. I'm just going to do it for him for a change.
Christopher, you're hired. You're going to be my promotional director.
I was looking for a job. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Jane, I yield the floor.
Rich, we'll turn it over. Do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to pop around. And one of the things that when we referee, we go through many experiences. One of the things I always like to know is, what is the hardest decision you've had to make as a referee in your experiences? So I think we could select a few of our storytellers, and I'm going to say Mike Murphy, Paul Schugsta, and maybe Ann Cutler, if you would, in that order. Just let me know in a short explanation what you think the hardest thing you did as a referee in your situation. And we can start with Mike.
Thanks, Rich, and thanks everybody for being here tonight. It's a great forum. The hardest thing I ever did, or the hardest decision, I think the hardest thing I ever did was probably rowing ahead of Schuylkill in 1971. And I was a senior at Bonner High School, and we beat St. Joe Prep, and all was good with the world that day. But the hardest decision that I made was probably last year when we were at the Stowsbury Regatta, and I had a situation where a referee made a call, and it's very timely, Joan, that you put in there about stick with your decision, that a referee had made a decision, and then after realizing, apparently didn't ponder the decision or whatever, but excluded a team, and then told me that the team didn't need to be excluded. They shouldn't have been excluded. And to make a long story short, I had to meet with our jury, my deputy chief, and the remedy was was asked of us that we let crew run in lane 7. Now, anybody that's run on Schuylkill River realizes that we have 6, and there is no 7 lanes. But unfortunately, long ago, the precedent was set to run in lane 0. It's not my precedent I would ever set, but it was there. And then, so we talked it over, and the thing that we had to do was run in lane 0, shut down the course with the cooperation of a fantastic jury. We were able to do it, and everybody got an opportunity, a fair opportunity to compete, and that was probably it.
Deal. Yep.
Yeah, good.
Paul, do you have can you recall any hard decisions you were forced into?
Yeah, I have one in particular. It involves the Stowsbury Cup Regatta, and I was officiating the boys varsity single race, and I was the senior referee in lanes 1, 2, and 3, and all the way down the course, the rower in lane 1, which was from a local school, he was neck and neck with another rower who I forgot his affiliation. They were in either lane 3 or 4, and it was matched pretty evenly all the way down the course, through the head of the island, through the island, and then it was really a photo finish. And we all had to wait for the ruling from the tower as to who won that particular race. And this was for the gold medal, the boys varsity single at the Stowsbury Cup. And unfortunately, the boy in lane 1 missed out. He came in second. The boy in lane 3 or 4 won. Unfortunately, the boy in lane 1, who was sitting there in front of a packed reviewing stand of parents, grandparents, competitors, and everyone else, at the top of his lungs, lets out the F-bomb. And I felt terrible that he did it. And as circumstances were, the other person in the launch with me was another referee. And unfortunately, I had to go over to the young man and say, I'm sorry, that was unsportsmanlike conduct. I'm sorry, I have to exclude you. And unfortunately, the young man missed out on the second place silver medal at the Stowsbury Cup. I tried to console him by saying, you have another opportunity coming up in a week or so at the Scholastic Nationals to redeem yourself. But I felt terrible about doing it. And I kept saying to myself, if only he was over in lane 6 and said it in a muted term, I might have had more discretion. But when he's right up against the reviewing stand and lets the exclamation off at the top of his lungs, I really have no choice in the matter. So to this day, I feel terrible about making the decision, and I feel bad for the young man, and I hope he understood and redeemed himself at the Scholastic Nationals.
Tough call, especially when these rowers are doing so well, and you hate to see them deprived of their finishing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, tough decision. And Cutler, do you have a particular incident you can recall that was a tough decision?
Well, I can, the first one that comes to my mind is the one that I'll share. And I just want to put it a little bit in context because I look at somehow we are all helping the athletes through their development as they go from high school to college to kind of whatever. And our decisions that we make at their younger levels, you know, are really important to how they're going to behave down in the future. And one of the things that the real tough thing for me to do is have to disqualify somebody, and I had to, exclude somebody, a high school crew from the city championships that came in second place. Because all the way down the course, they were interfering with the crew that finished third. And I had to tell them 7 or 8 times as I'm coming down the course to move into their lane, move into their own water. And they completely, and I know they heard me because I was right on top of them. And the flag, I was using my flag, and then I was using my voice, but they didn't move. And I had to, they came in second, they thought they won. And to keep the fairness going, it wasn't fair to the third place boat, their behavior. And I also felt that I had to explain to them that it's just not acceptable to ignore a referee. In that situation, they had to really understand that they were encroaching on other people's water. So that was a tough decision for me. It was really, really hard because it was toward one of the final races, and it was so loud, and it was really hard for me to communicate to the chief, who was Rich Dougert, what my decision was, but I think it was the fair one. But it was hard, all the way down the course. I'm saying, if these people don't move, it's going to be, it wasn't fair to the third place crew. So we advanced the third place to second. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, one of the themes you heard here is that it is often difficult to make these decisions. And we certainly, as referees, would like to see everybody row clean races and finish on their own merits and not have to be encumbered by any rule breaking or penalties. And it really is not a favorite of any referee that I know to impose any kind of penalty. So, and I think you heard that tonight from the last 3 of our storytellers.
Yeah, interesting enough, those were all high school races that each of the hardest decisions came out of. And I think, and we've had this discussion before about when you are training to be a referee, the training ground, those high school races are where you learn
Yeah,
a lot of those toughest decisions, and you really learn the rules in and out, because like you said, as you get to higher levels, those rules are kind of taken care of in a little bit better way, or you hope they are anyway.
Well, I think people come better prepared, the further they go.
Right.
But yeah, I recommend to anybody, if they really want to learn the role of the referee, do the flicks. And they're long days, but you see every nuance of what can happen out there on the river, right, Rich?
Absolutely. It's a terrific training ground for referees, because we have 5 flicks and into the city championships makes a 6th regatta in the spring. And we're dealing with many novice and freshman crews. And it is gratifying really to see these crews improve week to week. And the one thing I like to emphasize with the referees who work for me is we apply the rules evenly to everyone. And the hope is that these young rowers, as they go through these regattas on the Schuylkill, they learn and it sticks with them. So at the time when they get up to national regattas or into college, if they go that far, that they have learned well to manage themselves and to worry about the racing and not worry about the rules as much as from a penalty standpoint. So it is gratifying to see these young rowers progress through the year for sure, and from year to year, because I guess I've been, like at the Flicks, I've been chief for about 13 years, something like that. And it's, you see all these rowers from year to year. It's kind of very gratifying to see them progress.
I add a little something. I heard a great deal of regret from the referees talking about exclusions, whether it was for foul language or otherwise. And I just think, as somebody sort of mentioned in the comments, not only is it a civilized sport, but especially our youth can continue to learn from the rules, the regulations, and their elders and their officials. And my hope is not a regret, but rather that that athlete goes on and does amazing things by recognizing that when excited and in chaos, they can control themselves, right? Whether that be work or otherwise. And I'll tell a quick story because it is present for, you're all Philadelphia folks, and it could be that the referee is right here. But I started rowing at Wesleyan as a freshman, and I was in the Dadvale Regatta in 1988, having been a soccer player until I got to Wesleyan. And we were undefeated. And we came from behind in our New England championships the week before and beat the undefeated University of New Hampshire. We came to the Dadvale Regatta undefeated, and there was a team from Florida that was also undefeated. We rowed the Dadvale Regatta, and in the semifinal, were disqualified for missing a buoy. And we cried, well, I cried. I don't know about everybody else. I cried all the way back to Wesleyan on the bus. And I was bound and determined to go back and play soccer. I was done sport of rowing 1 year, forget about it. And I think all summer I was planning, all summer I was planning on going back to soccer. I actually sat in the soccer locker room for the first day of practice and heard the coach. And then my novice coach's voice was ringing in my ears, and I went back to the boathouse. I've since represented the US on the lightweight national team. I founded a community rowing program in Western Massachusetts, and I'm a candidate to become a referee. So exclusions, I think, have a purpose, and sometimes it drives people to be better.
A good comment, because and it's true, because that experience that you had prepared you to be an official as well. And I'm sure it improved and impacted your character development when you were a young rower all the way through. And that's what the sport does. It creates character within our athletes. And that's the one terrific thing about the sport of rowing that I think it far surpasses other sports.
You know, it's one of the, I always say it's one of the few sports where athletes are really on their own out there. They don't have a coach right on the sidelines like in basketball or tennis or whatever, football where they're calling all the shots. Once that boat leaves the dock, they are on their own and they have to manage out there. And that's a tough thing to do when you're young, but it gives them that opportunity. And that's why that's one of the reasons why I love the sport.
Yeah, and the thing you mentioned that comes through is none of the referees, and I'm good friends with many of the people up on the screen here. None of us love to go or want to go to that exclusion situation, but you know, the situation that I described, I bet it happened 20, 22, 23 years ago, and I've carried that with me. Not that it's whatever, but it's still, you know, it's still a sad part of the memory of refereeing. But I have so many happy memories. But it's something, you know, that I wish I could not have, would not have occurred, but we had to go to, and I think that's what we learn as referees to, you know, we know the rules and we see the circumstance, we make the decision, and we stand by our decision. But many of us find the decisions, you know, hard to make, and we don't want to do any any harm to the athletes, and certainly don't want them to be negatively impacted, but it's certainly a learning experience for them.
Good.
Okay.
All right. Let's turn to, maybe we can look to Chall and Jc Martin to tell us a little bit about why they decided to become a referee. I think kind of let's hear a bit the beginnings a little bit before we delve into maybe some of the changes we've seen over the years and how we can get more younger folks involved. So Ken?
Yeah. Okay, if I can speak first, and I'm sorry my camera didn't come up,
That's
but
okay.
I've been a referee. I've been a referee now since 1982. But the reason I became a referee was because I was more involved with the regatta management. And to run a quality regatta, you had to have a good referee corps. I started working at the Davio Regatta in 1972. I was director of operation and vice president for 35 years. I reactivated the Philadelphia Frostbite Regatta as chairman in 1981. I was on the USRA board in the 1980s. Chris, I won't ask you to comment when you and Bill Hollenbach asked me to put the first Dragon Boat team together in 1982. And then, of course, we competed in Hong Kong in 1983. I was also the chairman of the Middle States Regatta. I decided to be a referee because I knew what made a regatta successful was a great referee corps. And I can go back, you know, many, many years with Tully Vaughn and Chris and Paul Schugsta, Matt Ledwith, all those people that helped run the regattas that we made successful. And I always felt that I had to be a part of that and give back to refereeing as all those referees gave to what I had done in regatta management. So I thank all of you. All of you are my friend. John Musial, I won't tell you any stories about when you were in college rating my daughter's refrigerator. We won't go into that.
Thank you, Ken.
Jennifer.
I appreciate that, Ken. Thank you.
How about JC? Do you want to chime in there?
Yeah, sure. I actually got recruited by a referee, but how I got into it was a little bit different. I started doing my rowing much later in life. I answered an ad in one of the Philadelphia weekly papers. Must have been late 2000, early 2000, and I was doing it as a result of the Fairmount Park Commission. So I did my rowing. Following season, I joined the Bachelors, and I started volunteering. I was volunteering my time for a couple of the races. Then I wound up being the dock master all the time. I was like, can I go somewhere else? I was trying to figure out how to go somewhere else. And while I was at my club's Christmas party, John Hogan, the gentleman that recruited me, basically asked me if I thought about becoming a referee. Thought about it, came out the following spring season, did what John Mutual just talked about, the whole 9 yards, where we had to do the observations, take the test, and I've been doing it since then. And the main reason why I enjoyed it was it really gets me out of the house, but I kind of figured I have seen some great races over the years, and like all of us, we all have our little war stories that goes with our events. I mean, whether it be, and most of my war stories always focus on the high school kids, because I know it doesn't matter. I'll always get something from them. And I'm like, okay, but no matter what, it has been a great opportunity. And even now, I still take the time when we get some of the candidates. I try to explain to them, look, you're not going to see everything in one shot. We're trying to give you the framework of what you're going to operate in. And then once you pass once you pass the test and you get the experience, I tell them, number one, your first maybe 2 years, don't worry about it. It's going to come at you at a rush. Don't worry about it. As long as you got a point, we can, just like a jigsaw puzzle, we can fill it in. And then now I'm getting to the point where I'm trying to explain the gray areas that they need to deal with. So there's a lot of subtleties here that we have to deal with as a referee, that as a lot of our viewers have been hearing, both in terms of trying to enforce their rules and conduct, in this case, the exclusion, directing crews, which not really our responsibility to direct the crews, but it's just more preventing them from doing something that we don't want them to do. So you get a wide range of opportunities to do this. Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
I have
JC.
to say that JC has been one of our stalwart referees in the region. He's the one guy I can always depend on when I'm reaching out for staffing and find shortages. He's the guy that's always stepping up, and I do appreciate that. We have many referees who are just so loyal to the sport that when they see a need, there's a shortage of referees to come to a regatta to make it happen. They line up to do that, no matter what their personal situation is. JC is one of them. I just want to thank him for that.
Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, Rich, I think that points to, what the challenges are going forward for refereeing and our sport. Maybe we can call on Mark Valenti or John Izzard to talk about maybe some of the challenges that face referees in the future, maybe things that can be improved upon, something along those lines. Mark? You might have dropped off. John Izzard, are you still there?
I'm hanging in. Yes, I am.
Okay.
I just want to thank Rich for being very patient with me when I started. And Jim Barker, even though he didn't threaten me this time, he gave me his magic watch and told me that it would be good luck for me every time I'm on the river. And Jim, you were absolutely right. Your watch has been very, very lucky for me. So thanks, Jim. I just like being with a lot of dynamic people. I haven't found any referee that hasn't been a dynamic person and very, very supportive, but caring in regard to supporting all of the athletes, males and females, the adapted as well. And as Joan talked about, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, because I know she has a lot of energy, to the late hours in the rain and in the cold. These people impress me. Referees have always impressed me. That's how I first met Jimmy Barker when we were refereeing basketball. And there's a certain type of attitude that goes along with that. And one is not only just being supportive, but wanting and desiring to help build character in those athletes. And that's very, very important. And it carries on over into our families as well. That has really impressed me. I first saw it with Jimmy Barker and then a lot of other folks on the river where their families are engaged in supporting not only the sport, but helping mom and dad with their interests as well. So I just want to thank everyone for being involved and supporting me in my quest to improve and be a part of the Corps.
Thank you, John.
Well said, John.
Very well said.
I see Mark Valenti on.
Yeah, I'll be very brief.
Okay.
I got involved with Ken Shaw 40 years ago at LaSalle High School, and then through Ken, and Joe Sweeney got involved in the Schuylkill Navy, and I enjoyed it immensely working with, I suppose, almost exclusively the last 30 years or so on the Schuylkill. And I see Joan there with her Fairmount mug prominently displayed in the background. Way to go,
All
Joan.
kinds. Everything.
I quickly turned from refereeing to more involved in logistics because I realized after a few years that it was much more fun to push docks up and down the river with John Musial, or the name escapes me at University Barge Club now, Bruce Lalonde, and putting buoys in with Al Wacklin and Chris Blackwall. That was more in my skill set, and rustling launches and schlepping gasoline up and down the river. So I've continued to marshal in regattas, and every year in some regatta in the most miserable weather, if I'm marshaling at the top of the island, it makes the day worthwhile when a couple of crews come by and the entire all 9 kids say, "Thank you, sir." Makes it worth it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Pretty amazing within this group how many have the attitude of, I'll do whatever I can to make the regatta a success. And that's the key to, I think, making a regatta work, is having everybody willing to just do what they can to chip in, to do it in their skill set, to contribute to having a regatta be successful. As Jen, as you know, that as a regatta director, you need a lot of people to make it work. And referees are certainly a key part, and on the day of, probably the most important part.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, you do have a lot of other people that have to contribute to helping us do our job. So it's really great. One of the things that makes our sport so enjoyable is having that kind of attitude among the people you come in contact with.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So I want to bring in Jules Zane, who is the U.S. Rowing Director of Referee Programs. But just before I do that, I see that Bernadette Murphy is on, and I just wanted to make the point, and maybe and she could talk to maybe seeing our sport a little bit from the outside, and being a referee now. But what we're seeing in rowing in general, this multi-generational, groups where parents and kids and grandparents now have rowed, is quite awesome. And now we're seeing that in some of the referee corps. And then you have those special cases also where husband and wife both referee. So it truly is a family affair. And I think that, Bernadette, did you want to say anything about your experiences?
I know that she's talking. Okay, there you go. Jen, Bernadette is an accomplished softball umpire who's come to us in refereeing.
Yeah.
And talk to everybody about being a referee.
Oh, that's called putting me on the spot.
It is, Bernadette. Well, you know what, Bernadette?
I love being a referee. I started Lake Herschel. At Lake Herschel. I had Michael go to a softball tournament with me in Ohio, and he helped out at the tournament. And then we went down to Lake Herschel to do which one?
National championship.
It was a national championship, and they needed help. So I had never driven a launch and figured I would learn how to drive a launch. And from there, I helped out wherever I could. And they got me a candidate card, and I'm a referee.
Yeah, no,
and now my goal is to become a full referee.
Awesome. I remember you and Mike telling me that story one afternoon, and I just thought it was really great. And how the sport can attract people from different sports. And I think those are good eyes to have. So I think it's great, and welcome.
Thank you.
So Jules, can you tell us a little bit about this? We did hear a little bit about the process of becoming a referee, but maybe just tell us a little bit about your experience in your position and what you've seen, maybe the changes over the years, if there's been any, or just from your perspective, what you see in the referee corps.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. My first interaction with a referee was actually with John Musial. I had just moved to the US from the Netherlands. My wife had just made the training center in Princeton, and I wanted to see her compete in a national selection regatta. And I asked at the US Rowing office, where I was an intern at the time, if there was a good way to see it. And they said, well, have you ever driven a boat? I was like, yeah, I've driven a boat before. They're like, great, you're a launch driver. And they actually put me in a boat with John Musial, and somehow through some magic, I ended up being the launch driver for my wife's selection race. Just funny how that works. And so that was and it was funny, John, because the next day I was the launch driver for a different referee, and they're like, wow, you know, boat placement's like really good. It's like, I spent 6 hours with John Musial, and they're like, oh, okay. And that was good. And I was gonna talk a little bit about what Rich said earlier about the can-do attitude of the referee corps, which I think is something that for our staff speaks to us the most. One thing that's funny is when people hear that I work for US Rowing and I'm at a regatta, like, wow, you must be the first person at the venue and the last person to leave. I was like, actually, there's a group of people, it isn't even their job, and yet they're here usually before me, and they often leave after me. And I think, you know, that's something that people almost don't appreciate enough. But when when you asked about like a funny story or examples of incredible work that people do, the chief referee of this regatta is actually spectating. The 2019 Masters Nationals was not our best event in some ways. There were some issues. In part, it was plagued by fog every morning, which was condensing the schedule. And, you know, that we were cutting into lunch breaks, and we were just trying to get all these races down to course. And what I remember just about, you know, the effort that it took from the referees to make that regatta happen was that I walked over to the finish line to ask our timing people how things were going. And we'd been sitting there for a few minutes, and the pace was picking up and trying to get races down to course. And remember, this is Masters Nationals. It's a 1,000-meter course. It's pretty darn short. And the guy from the timing company starts laughing. He says, I've never seen this. And he nudges me and points at his screen. And there were 3 live races on the course. And anyone here who's like, oh, like, you know, like, I don't think I'd ever seen that at a 2K course. And here we were at a 1K course, and there were 1-minute intervals, and people were just coming down, and it was incredible. I will always kind of remember that. In terms of challenges, like if someone's or how things change, I think if someone's on this call who's near a place that has a venue but not a lot of referees, you're the people that we need. The referee committee calls it needs-based recruiting, but it's really what we see as US Rowing is that venues are popping up and head races are popping up in locations where the number of referees isn't quite sufficient. And so what these organizing committees struggle with is getting people to come to that place, or finding enough people to even, you know, run the event. And so, you know, where we really need people is very specifically in certain locations. I think there are a lot of events in Philadelphia, but there are also a lot of regattas in Philadelphia, or a lot of referees in Philadelphia, which is a huge benefit. But if you're a regatta organizer in Oklahoma, or you're trying to put on a head race in Louisiana, people might be making a 6-hour road trip just to referee your event, which I think is incredible. And I just, you know, it's one of those things that, if you ask me what keeps me up at night, is trying to find people to staff those events. If someone happens to be on who's in a place that that isn't quite a hotbed of refereeing or a hotbed of rowing, you're the people that we need. But other than that, I think, you know, as US Rowing and as staff, we have a real appreciation for what everybody in the Corps does, and for the commitment from people and the long hours that come with it. And it's a joy to work with everybody on this call. It's awesome to see so many familiar faces. So thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Jules. So at this point in time, I'm going to open it up. If anybody has any questions, they can jump in and unmute themselves. I'm going to start with, and maybe Jules, you can speak to this. This is a question from Jim Dietz. Jim, I don't know if you're on. I saw you earlier, but I'll go ahead and read your question. With Title IX and the growth of women's rowing over the past 25 years, how has this impacted the limited number of judge referees in the USA? With 22 conference championships happening in the 2 weeks prior to the NCAA championships, that must be straining the system. Are there any initiatives in progress to get more referees into the system now? So much of
yeah, I think that the one thing about it is, I think, we're trying to recruit everywhere we can. And it's probably worth noting, US Rowing is very grateful for this, that when it comes to recruiting efforts and education, the NCAA writes the biggest grant that goes directly towards the referee program every year. And it's for a significant amount of money. Like, you could buy a new car from it. It's one of the best grants we get. It's very reliable every year. They even funded it throughout the pandemic where there weren't any races, no questions from them. And we report to them, how many people did we recruit? What are we doing to recruit? What are we doing differently this year? What are we doing in terms of education to get more people ready to work collegiate events where the stakes are higher and higher? Because that's feedback we get from coaches. It used to be, I think, that it was important for coaches, but maybe their contract didn't have bonuses. And now, even we see that as staff, like a youth coach will come to us and be like, I can't believe no one saw this, and this wasn't made right at the finish line, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, look, like we have live stream now. We went to the video. It wasn't as you presented. And then you realize, like, oh, maybe the crew boosters give him 50 grand extra if his kids win the national championship. And I think that, we're doing a really good job. I think, especially in the years leading up to the pandemic, which unfortunately slowed it down tremendously, but we were breaking records in terms of numbers of new people that we were licensing. There were years where we had 40, 50 new people join, which was very much necessary. And so, the NCAA is actually a tremendous help, and they recognize that issue, and they provide funding for us to do those kinds of things. So, that's how we try to address that.
That's great, Jules. Thank you. Other questions? You could put them to someone directly or just to the group in general.
Tommy, you had your hand up.
Or thoughts?
Tom has his hand up, but he's on mute.
Oh,
well, not anymore. I'd like to respond to the recruiting question. When Ann and I moved back to Eastern Massachusetts in 2009, I think I was one of the only 2 fully licensed referees here. And I started doing the collegiate races on the Charles in 2011. And now, if you have the work to do, you can attract people to come out and do it. And now I just sent out the 2022 Charles River Collegiate Racing Series schedule to what I call the gang, which is now over 22 licensed officials. And, it's just, 1 or 2 a year, and you get them into the system. They graduate from candidate to assistant, and then you encourage them to take their full, their full referee exam. And, it's been great. And we've been able to support the coaches and the teams, and, looking forward to the season coming up. So it can be done. It takes some creativity and some outreach, but it can be done.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's just, you mentioned you just send out the invitation. Up in Massachusetts, I just send out the invitation for the PSRA series on the Schuylkill. And we normally require about 20 to 22 referees any given Sunday to make it safe and fair for these kids on our river, which has its difficulties, as you all know. So it's very important that we get more and more young referees into the system and give them some opportunities to develop within Philadelphia and to go out and, as Jules said, get out and enjoy some officiating in other parts of the country, which, you know, is starving for some good officials. So wherever we can get them, and we have people coming, we have referees coming down from New York, coming up from Virginia, just to referee on the Schuylkill, just for high school races. It's very gratifying to see this. So referees will go around the country and experience different venues, and just to put their hand in and support other regattas other than just Philadelphia area.
Good. Any
Yeah,
other
I hear
thoughts?
the softball.
Please.
I hear the softball field is a good recruiting ground.
Well, if you talk to Bernadette, probably was. So certain officials do share certain things within that transfer from sport to sport, of course.
Yeah.
We all have rules we have to enforce. We all have to be aware and observe what's going on. And you all have to think fast and be thinking on your feet quite often. So those kind of characteristics, I think, can be transferred. I know that I think John Izzard had been a referee or an official in other sports. And we have several referees that transfer to other sports. And again, those characteristics come in handy. So good to see that.
I'm transferring it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if Mark Valenti's still on, but I wanted to tell him something if he is.
He, yes, I believe he is.
Okay. Where are you, Mark? I just want to say that I visualize you as the Swiss Army knife of Schuylkill officials, because you referee. I've seen you get up into get your elbows wet, untangling miles of wire. It doesn't matter what's going on. The river could be in flood. You're there, and you have a capability that's needed at any point for any reason. So I want to just give you kudos for all of the above.
If he's not here, we'll make sure he sees that video, that recording, Christopher.
Yeah, I just wanted to add.
Mr. Barker has his hands up. Can we just go to him real fast, and then we'll go to you, John.
Okay.
You know, I've never refereed a race in my life, and I've probably been in more races than any of you people referee. But I have refereed in a sports that's it's killer for a referee. I refereed major college basketball. I refereed in Gloucester, and I worked in Madison Square Garden. But I want to tell you something. When you blow the whistle and refereeing, everything stopped. And you know, in a boat race, you got time to glide over to the finish line of the judge and collect your thoughts, what you want to say. But when you blow that whistle in Madison Square Garden or at the Gloucester, everything goes dead. And now they're going to listen to you. So you better come up with something right away. And I'll tell you this, that I enjoy refereeing more than anything. But I'm going to tell you one thing, you got to be open-minded. Paul Schugsta will tell you, I refereed a game in the Gloucester between Bishop Newman High School, which was an all-black school, and LaSalle High School, which is an all-white school. White kids from the main line, and for the Catholic League Championship. And what happened was I blew the whistle and I looked up at the clock. There was 1 second left in the clock. And that was the kid jumped in the lane, called a violation with 1 second to go. And he had to redo the shot, get back, give the shot. And the kid made the shot. And Bishop Newman beat LaSalle High School, you know, inner city. But that was one of the great thrills of my life. I refereed Madison Square Garden, refereed Gloucester, and just about anywhere in the East. And it taught me a lot about people. I'm really, I admire all you referees. because I'm one of the people that sat in the boats and was victimized or whatever called by the referees. And you got to keep up the work you're doing, because without the referees, it's just not a sport.
Yep. Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Jim.
John?
I just had one thought when we were talking about the future that I've shared it with other groups, and I'll share it with this one as well. One of the biggest challenges we face right now is we're coming out of COVID. We have a full slate of regattas coming up this year, and we have definitely lost referees. And it's going to be a real challenge to get them all staffed. And I encourage everybody, even if you're not a referee, to become one or to volunteer when you go to some of these races, because that's going to be the difference between some of this stuff running or not running this year.
We lost you.
But it's really important that we 550, so that covers the entire country. And the other thing I'd like to just point out that you have 4 of the referee leaders from across the country here tonight. Dee McComb from the Northwest, Elaine Roden from the Southeast, Bob Appleyard from the Midwest, myself representing the Mid-Atlantic, and my successor, Mike Murphy's also here, and probably a half a dozen other former members of the committee or the board of directors from US Rowing are here. So it's good to see that people care and are interested in what we're doing. That's it.
Absolutely, John. That's wonderful. Thank you for pointing that out. Really great conversation tonight. I wish we could spend hours together, but we should do this again. This was great. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So I'm going to say our thank yous to John and Christopher and Rich, to our referees are on board this evening, to Jules for supporting this conversation, and to our Committee 50 for pulling together yet another great story hour, and to each of you here tonight for investing your time with us this evening and in this conversation, because it's an important one to our sport. And honestly, like the amount of appreciation that was shown tonight, I think speaks volumes about the people that we are blessed to have, in this sport. So we will we will
Jennifer,
yes.
Jennifer, I'm sorry, but before we close,
sure,
let's remember Tom Dowd and all the other referees that have given so much to us that we respected so well over the years, and keep them in our prayers.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Jen, thank you very much for organizing this and for all the energy you poured into this whole exercise. You and Christopher have done yeoman's work in doing this. I think this is a great opportunity to keep us together during the off season. So kudos to both of you for that.
Great.
Yes.
That's great.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So we will post this recording on our HOSR YouTube page and our website. I'll send a direct email to everyone that registered tonight once it's posted. So we encourage you to share that with others, folks that maybe will be interested. There's got to be a way to somehow get these college kids that maybe take a hiatus from rowing or don't go on to rowing right away, to get them to stay in the sport by refereeing. So I think there's a lot of great options out there to get recruiting. I hope you will join us. We're going to have another story hour next month, February 24th. This is again a Thursday evening, and we're going to talk about the history and evolution of rowing equipment and technology. We have Calvin Coffey and Ted Van Duzen, Mike Vespoli, Alex James of NK, all joining us among others. So you can reach out to me anytime, Jen Wesson at hosr.org. We love to hear your thoughts and ideas for other story hours as well. Stay healthy, stay warm, right? And good night, everyone.